playing live yet. Hello, hello, hello. What ho? Welcome back. Welcome to the very first live stream for Red Hen Radio. I'm your host, Travis Finley. Let's see, making sure. Oops, I think I'm still muted on Discord. Yeah. All right, so welcome to the show. This is a live stream, first live stream for Red Hen Radio. I'm your host, Travis Finley. Starting out to call this just one more thing in the vein of Columbo. We got Helvetica Bold in the Discord. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome to the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it? Yeah. Was it something I said?
No, it was not. Definitely not something you said. It was.
No,
it was just.
I know.
Yeah. It was just life. Yeah, so much time has passed by. I think it's been 2 years really since I've done any content on this channel, and I just got pulverized by the emotional response of the threat, the ominous threat of the court system. You know. So
that's the context of our discussion, or it's going to be a fluid discussion?
Well, I mean, I was hoping to find a lot of people coming in from Alphonse's Telegram group, because there's so many questions that come up that either can possibly, get passed over in the chat. I don't always see them all. I've got questions still, and I don't know. I just was kind of in the mood. We'll go for an hour or so. If nothing happens in an hour, then we'll just kill it and maybe try again. But I think that it would be really helpful. It would be, like I said, because there are still questions that I have that seem to be underlying assumptions or understoods, right? Like a lot of people will make comments in the Telegram group as if they understand something to be the case. But for me, it's not obvious. So I'm like, well, how do you know that? How do you know that? So...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions of common law, admiralty law, commerce law. The groups that I have joined and left, because I think there's an awful lot of faith in the logic of common law and how you can on paper dismantle admiralty law. When you go into a court, you're outnumbered, and the charging officer and the magistrates still believe that they have authority over your life, and that their rules, their codes apply to you, and they have the power to imprison you, to fine you, to throw you in a cage. It's just not as simple as I hold the trump card here because I'm going to call common law.
Well, see, that's the whole... Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. I mean, I didn't approach it with common law at all. I just went at it with argumentation and debate. Because in my opinion, a courtroom hearing is strictly a debate. And the winner is the one, whether or not the judge agrees, right? The judge is impartial. You, Helvetica, could very well argue your case better than I. And even if the judge thinks that you're wrong, but you argued better than I did, you came prepared, you had evidence, you had citations, you had witnesses, whatever. So that should be the deciding factor. Now, again, though, it should be I'm of the persuasion that it should be always a trial of peers and not just one guy, right? So the judge is a referee, so to speak. The jury, it should be left up to the jury, not the judge. because even the judge could be swayed by an emotional response from you or from me, or a psychological response, or whatever, you know. He's there as an arbiter. He's just simply there as a referee, for you to appeal to for order in the court. If I'm out of line, or if I... Go ahead.
Yeah, but he's also a human being, and he has his ego behind him.
That's why you've got to...
If you trip him up, if you trip him up through logic, you've embarrassed him, and then he can just dig his heels and contempt of court. And that's you in a cage for 24 hours.
That's right, or longer.
Yeah.
So I had small little disputes with traffic issues, but my last traffic issue was the possibility of 2 counts of jail time, right? So he could have sentenced me on one for 2 years and sentenced me on the other one for 5, right? And I had already experienced, in a lesser degree with no jail time, getting railroaded by the judge.
Yeah.
And
it's not dispassionate.
I
don't think you could ever get a dispassionate, neutral judge ever.
Well, that's why
I mean, the bleeding obvious here in the UK is that it's the Crown prosecution that brings you to court with the charges, and that they've prepared the case that you're guilty, but the judge sits under the Crown's coat of arms, and he's paid by the Crown because it's called the Crown Court. So there's an obvious what's the word I'm looking for here?
Bias.
Yeah, a bias, conflict of interest.
It's a conflict. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're both paid by the court, by the Crown, and they both get a better profit in their pocket if they can find you guilty. There's a Latin word for it. Let's see if we can find it.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see. Let's see if I can see how many people are watching. If anybody is, got 2 viewers. That's all right. I mean, it's it only takes a spark to get a fire going, or it only takes a snowflake to get a snowball rolling. It seems that you've got your mic goes live, it'll go on mute if you're not saying anything, but then if there's even a little bit of noise, it'll then pick up. But I don't know.
I'm just looking for this, see if we can find it. Why do you spell recuse when a judge recuses himself?
I just think it's RECUSE. Yeah. He's got to recuse himself, right?
If you can identify a conflict of interest, there's a Latin word for it. See, so that's where you're at a disadvantage as well. All these Latin words that the court are familiar with, but we're not. We have to.
Yeah, but that's when you just play like Columbo. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I don't have an education. I don't know these words. What does that word mean?
Yeah. What do you call it when there's no? It's an absolute truth, and there's no debate on it.
The first thing that comes to mind is ipso facto, but I don't know if that's it.
It's not what I was looking for. It's where there's Okay, I'll try it.
Ipso facto.
No, I can't find it. But the rules are that if you can show there's a conflict of interest, and you call the judge to recuse himself, he has to step down.
Yeah.
He can't decide. He can't decide that no, I'm not going to. If you call it, he has to do it.
Right. So we, there is one watcher right now, a new subscriber, Rachel Young. So Rachel asks the question. This is a question based on what Alphonse has been producing in his Telegram. She's asking about the affidavit of status and the affidavit of fact. Rachel, I would say, and again, I'm just learning this stuff, but I've been listening long enough to try to figure things out. I would say that you should do both. You should send it to the county clerk as well as the employer. So that's my 2 cents. Rachel, if you're interested, make sure you jump back on the Telegram and let people know that there's a healthy conversation going on right now. That way we can get some people in that might have more experience than I do. When I last spoke to Alphonse, it was 2 years ago. So his whole approach is completely different right now, Rachel. His affidavit of status and his affidavit of fact were not in his counsel to me 2 years ago. So this is all brand new in my experience. But yeah, I think the thing that I want to get under my belt and have someone in here who can have this discussion is kind of like what you're saying, Mark, and that is it's okay. So on the one hand, I don't want to cop around, but on the other hand, I do. On the one hand, when I'm driving to work, I don't want to cop around. I don't want to have to worry about whether or not I'm going 5 miles over the speed limit and he's having a bad day, or my tail light's out, or my headlight's out, or my plate light's out, or whatever, right? I don't want to cop around then. But there is the reality that if I need help with a civil matter, with a conflict with my neighbor, I'm going to need a cop, right? I'm going to need someone who...
If it's civil, should a cop be getting involved?
Well, what I mean is, okay, so look, if let's move it into traffic again. Let's say, for instance, you and I are driving and you're drunk as usual, and you hit my car. Okay, so you're drunk and you get out and you're like, hey man, this is not my fault, blah blah blah. Okay, that's when I want to cop around. I'm going to need a witness. I'm going to need someone who's going to be able to document this stuff. My question is, you've got two different arenas in which the cop operates. He operates in a civil arena where if there's a dispute between neighbors and we can't resolve it on our own, we need a third party. I suppose we could go to our third neighbor, our fourth neighbor, and say, hey, neighbor Bob, will you help us solve this dispute? I cannot get through to Jimbo here, right? But on a higher level, the cop has a higher position. So to me, I want him to have a high position on the one hand, right? And I don't want him around on the other. I don't want him around when he's a traffic pirate, but I do want him around when there's a civil matter and I need his help.
I don't think it works that way though, Travis. I mean, if there's a civil matter between you and your neighbours, his dog barks all night and he doesn't take any action.
No, that's why I'm taking it to the level of there's a victim, there's a crime. Okay,
Yeah,
I've
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So
I've
has it caused you any loss or harm?
right now.
Has he threatened? Has he threatened you or anything like that?
Right. So on the one hand, what like let's say for instance, I've never had any interaction with the law at all. I've got a clean record. I don't speed, nothing. I've never gotten pulled over. But one day my neighbor damages my property. How would I? Where would I go? Do I go to the same district courthouse? Right? They've got traffic court, criminal court, civil court. Right? I go to that same place. Right? So it's the same people, but it's a different arena. It's not traffic court. It's a personal criminal matter because I'm a victim and I've got a claim against somebody else.
Yeah, the police in the UK have got like two hats. They've got a police constable, and then they've got a law enforcer.
Is it the same person?
It's the same person, but acting under a different hat.
That's what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So a constable has taken an oath of office that he's going to protect people and property, whereas a police officer is going to enforce government acts at Parliament.
Right.
That has nothing to do with causing harm. It's another tax, isn't it?
Well, see, that's what I'm wondering. So how would I know? How would I know?
Well, the guy that stops you and comes with his uniform and his badge and his number and his gun, he doesn't know the difference.
Well, that's a bit of what I'm saying. We don't have constables. I'm not aware of a different category to address. I don't know when to address him as a peace officer, and I don't know when to address him as a traffic enforcer, right? Because those aren't the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, they're not. No. Traffic enforcer is working for a corporation, isn't he? He's gathering money.
Right.
Whereas a constable is protecting you and your property.
Right.
Or protecting somebody else from you who's harming somebody else's property and person.
Yeah.
But if they've got a taser and they've got handcuffs and a gun, there's no reasoning with them. I think at the side of the road you have to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Authority and argue about that in court. Have a bit of time to do your research and catch them out.
Yeah.
At that point.
Well,
I would hate to be tasered.
Oh, sure, for sure. That's the one thing that Eddie Craig says. You know who Eddie Craig is here in the States? You've seen his stuff?
Does he say a vehicle rather than vehicle?
Oh, I don't know. It's been so long since he's very Southern. He's got a very strong Texan accent.
I did know who you're talking about. A vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he takes the position that you don't speak, but if you do speak, he's got a script. Right? Like, this is the script. You get pulled over. The officer approaches, and the first words out of your mouth is, "How can I help you, officer? Is there an emergency?" I'm willing.
That's right. Yeah. He's the guy that you get the officer's number and you address him with that number every time that you speak to him.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm familiar with him, yeah.
But then there's the those who say, well, you don't say anything at all. I mean, you never even speak. That would be an interesting, like if you know what I mean. Like if your spouse doesn't talk to you at all, you get home from work and they don't even look at you. Like, how long are you gonna hang around in the kitchen to wait for it? I'd be like, okay, I'm done. Right. So how long? I've never seen any footage on YouTube of someone not talking at all. They don't hand over their papers. They don't even open their mouth. I've never seen that happen, so I don't know what it looks like.
But if you from what I see on YouTube
yeah,
in the States, if
Pot
you piss
Brothers.
off a police officer, he breaks the window, drags you out, tases you, handcuffs you.
Well, right.
Happy cops.
Well, but see, I mean, yeah, that's the worst case scenario. Now, I was on the brink of having that happen in my experience with getting arrested. I had my arresting officer on the passenger side. He had extended his baton, and he was looking at me thinking, and he was waving it back and forth like, "Just give me a reason, buddy," or he's looking at his superior officer saying, just tell me, Sarge. Just tell me I can do it, Sarge. And I had the superior officer try to reach inside my window that was just cracked open an inch. You know, he put his hands inside my window and tried to force the window down. So I've been on the brink, right? But there was no aggression. They were just pissed off someone was not complying with their demands.
There was a guy I was listening to maybe 3 or 4 years ago from Dublin. He was broadcasting from Dublin and how to handle police. And his response was, whenever the police officer says you were over the speed limit, all you say to him is, "Oh," with a little inflection and question mark at the end of it. And that's all you're going to offer him. "Oh, did you know that your tail lights are out?" "Oh." So you're not actually saying anything, but you are giving him something.
Yeah, but that's awkward when he says, "Your license and registration, please." "Oh." that's not. You know, that doesn't necessarily follow. But
I think the way the police work over here is that they control the conversation and they want to make you commit yourself. You know, what speed were you doing? I'm doing 30. "No, I caught you at 37. And that's when you go, "Oh," rather than trying to explain yourself and then
incriminate yourself.
Too much details. Yeah, and then he writes it down in your book that you admitted you were doing 30.
Right.
37 into 30.
Well, you know, that's the one thing that I. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go on.
No, you.
It's just in the heat of you see the flashing blue light.
Oh yeah.
And you know you have to stop the car, and then you see him getting out of the car. My temperature and blood pressure goes sky high.
Oh sure.
It's if it happens too often, I suppose you could learn how to remain cool.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen often enough for me, so that whenever I do see a cop, I'll tell you this. I think the past 2 to 3 times I've had a cop behind me, I intentionally turn off the road.
Yeah.
Let him pass by, and then I get back on the road. I don't want it. I don't want that stress. I don't need that stress. You know?
Did I tell you about the parking ticket attendant that I had an altercation with?
It's been a while, but go ahead. Go ahead. The audience will enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't pay for parking. I think that's immoral. For somebody to claim that space where you park your car is theirs and you have to pay them money for it, I just don't pay any parking ticket, and I ignore parking tickets. Well, there was Christmas shopping a couple of years ago. I came back to the car in a car park that I hadn't paid for, and there was the attendant putting a ticket on the windscreen. So I ripped it off my windscreen, went over to his van and put it on his windscreen. I says, "Don't put that back on my car." But he did. So I took it off and I stuck it on his shoulder. I says, "I don't want your paperwork." But then he took that as assault because I'd actually touched him. And so he pressed charges against me. Fortunately, there was no CCTV. Nobody else saw it. There was no witnesses. And so when the police called at my house at 11:30 on a Sunday night, 11:30 on a Sunday night when the kids are asleep and I was in bed, and they wanted to interview me about this incident, and it was 6 months later as well. I don't know. I just denied it. I said I never touched it.
Yeah, you know, I wonder if there could be some sort of litter violation that you could have filed against him, that he left trash on your car.
A counterclaim, yeah. I don't think I handled it that well.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
the
that's
altercation with
all
him.
right. Yeah,
I shouldn't have touched him, and I wasn't expecting him to roll all over the floor like a soccer player.
yeah.
Trying to get
Yeah, trying to draw the foul.
yeah. I had to go to the police station to explain myself, and I had a couple of weeks to rehearse myself as well. I said to this police officer, I don't know who this guy was. He was dressed in civvies. Would you understand that expression, civvies?
Well, all in the states, there is the use of the word civvies or skivvies, and they mean your underpants.
Oh right, no. Civvies here is not in uniform. It's a military expression. When you're in your civil clothing rather than your official
Yeah.
army
Okay.
uniform,
Sure. Okay.
you dress. So I just said he was dressed in his civvies, and I think that's what helped me because the police officer looked at me and he says, "So you're in the army, were you?" Now, because he wears a uniform, he understood what I meant. That this guy was dressed in jeans and a sort of a blue jumper. I don't know who he was, and
Oh,
he was arrested
the guy that wrote you the
parking
ticket.
attendant, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
He
yeah,
had no
yeah.
uniform.
No, we didn't know. No, we had a blue jumper, and it wasn't jeans, but it was just khaki trousers. You know, it wasn't. He wasn't. He didn't look official at all. He could have been anybody. He could have been one of the HUDs.
Sure. Okay.
You know, the paramilitaries in Belfast.
Uh huh. Yeah.
But I saw he was such a snowflake. You know, oh, you hurt me. Sorry.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, we've got Journey's Wake out in the audience there. Just making a comment again. If you get stopped, always find a way to record. And I did have
Always what?
find a way to record
Oh right, okay.
either both audio and visual, or at least audio. And that's what I had with my. Now, that's what I had with my arrest on. I think it was February 5th, 2019. But yeah. So the one thing that's interesting for me with talking to Alphonse in the Telegram chat is that there's no limitation on fraudulent activity. So I could very well possibly bring suits against the arresting officers, and I'm thinking about trying it out on the tow truck company. Right? So these are the ones that stole my car and impounded my car and then made me pay them to get it back.
All they were going from was maybe an email that they received from the police department.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be interesting that if I started with the smaller fish. Now, I actually was going to do this 2 years ago, but they would not give me anyone's name. So when I went into the establishment, I asked for the owner's name and I asked for the truck, and they would. I mean, I could have gotten the tow truck driver, I suppose, because of the ticket, unless I couldn't read it. But anyway, they would not divulge any information from me, and I was just thinking, I don't even. Do I even want to try to figure this shit out? Like, how long is this going to take me? How much time, how much effort is this going to... And I was stressed out, and that's when I just started losing my emotional ties for it. I'm just like, I don't know if I can handle this kind of stress, which is what they are ultimately hoping on. You know, they're ultimately hoping that kind of emotional intimidation is going to curtail anybody's actions against them. And I think it pretty much works all across the board. But,
yeah,
you know, it is possible if I could open up a suit against the tow truck company now and deal with them, like, I'm not afraid of them. You know what I mean? I'm the one with the claim, and I can pretty much, I think, present my case fairly well. But if that goes through, right? if I have my claim sustained by the court, and then I go to the cops, and they know that I already won my claim against the truck driver, the tow truck driver, I think that they would be like, he's already won the first battle. We're probably not going to win this one.
Yeah, was it our friend in Australia? What's he called? My mind's gone now. He
Max Egan?
Yeah, Max Egan. Yeah, he was suggesting that you go after their insurance indemnity, or at least let their insurance company know.
Right. Yeah.
That they screwed up.
Yeah.
And the cost is going to come to the insurance company, and then, so that they've got now another sort of attack coming from the insurance company.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and so then you hopefully have a settlement out of court.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
You
but
have these.
You've got to have the balls and the time and money to.
Sure. Well.
I mean, the injustice of it all.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think the time and the money gets compensated for in your claim. So when you have a bill of rates, you know, for your claim, for your time, like, I'm going to charge you for my time away from work. I'm also going to charge you for the offenses. You falsely arrested me. You assaulted me. You committed battery against me, right? So you have all of these claims. If you make an exorbitant amount of claims, so it's like $150,000, they're like, look, we'll give you 25. You're like, yeah, I'm good with that. You know what I mean? I'm good with that one.
Predictable outcome, though, is there?
No, that's what's interesting about it. But yeah, I think that you're right. If you take the approach of handling their insurance, then they're going to get pressure from their own system, right? Yes. So
we're not going to insure this police officer. So his job's on the line, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've got someone who joined, and I just want to check Rob 1776, if you want to just say hello and introduce yourself. Or if you're here to just listen, that's fine as well.
(1776) was that when the King James Bible was published?
No, that was 1611. 1776 was the American Revolution. Or are you just messing around?
I'm just messing around. I'm English. We want a rematch.
Oh.
And we'll win this time.
Listen, you guys won last time. We're still under the crown, bro.
Yeah.
It was all a farce, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, all right. So listen, we are at 5. We've been doing this for about 30 minutes or so, and Rob hasn't said hello, which is fine. But let's see. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. You know, maybe those who are involved in Alphonse's group will have a little bit more interest in the future. We'll see.
So
if this...
you're saying that Alphonse has changed his tactics over the last couple of years?
Yeah. So when I talked to him last in 2019, I don't remember the details of the motion, but he encouraged me to prepare a motion, send it ahead to the judge that was going to prepare the judge of what I was going to require of the judge the moment I stepped into court. So when it was my turn, I went up, and it was actually, I was the first one on the docket. So I stood up, and I required the judge to make a judicial decision right then and there as to whether or not the cop had probable cause to pull me over. Now, in the two different worlds, right, and the reason why I'm saying it this way, in the two different worlds, probable cause in common law means that there has been damage or injury to another party. Okay, so based on the Constitution, I cannot be arrested without due process. And what that means then is that Mark has to file a claim against me that I have caused you or your property injury, and you are seeking remedy. So then that goes to the court. The court looks over your claim and says, okay, I'll issue a warrant. And then they give it to a police officer or magistrate or whatever. And then I'm a wanted man at that moment. So there's a victim and there's a claim. And there's probable cause. So when you were dealing with traffic incidents, issues in traffic, there is no, unless you've hit someone, there is no crime, right? So I could have hit you, and it could have been an honest mistake. Just I looked over at a billboard, or I looked over at the cute blonde on the sidewalk, and I veered off and bumped your car, right? But if I were drunk or inebriated somehow, that ups the ante, right? I'm driving irresponsibly, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, so simply because I have a tail light out, or simply because I have exceeded the speed limit, that's not a crime. There's no injury. Who's the injured party?
Yeah.
So you've got two different realms, two different universes in existence. And they try to impose they try to conflate the two and call a crime a traffic violation. So when you are, and if you see any of these YouTube videos, a lot of these guys that are aware of how to have a conversation, if you do engage the officer, they'll say, I'm investigating a crime. That's what they'll tell you they're doing right then and there. I am investigating a crime. What's your probable cause? You were going over the speed limit. You have expired tags on your license. So I can't remember what sparked that.
Yeah,
that conversation.
This is something I'm familiar with as well, going back 3 or 4 years ago. One of the questions you could ask.
Oh, I know what it was. Let me. I'm sorry. Let me finish up just real quick. That was my roundabout way of answering your question about Alphonse. So I went in and said to the judge, I'd like you to make a judicial decision as to whether or not the officer had probable cause, and the judge said, "Yup, he did." Right? So and Alphonse was saying, if he's an honorable judge, he'll say no, because he knows it's not a crime. But this guy was pushing my buttons to see how far I would take it. Now, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I do know that the judge at that moment tabled my hearing to the very end. So I was the very first one in the courtroom, and there was a line of people behind me. And then he said, okay, we're going to take care of your case at the end, Mr. Finley. Now, what I should have said at that moment was, objection, Your Honor, do I not have the right to a fair and speedy trial? Because that's what I want. And you are depriving me of that right. Now, ultimately, there's so many things, right? One of the things I would do is I would demand a trial by jury. Get this guy out of the spotlight of being the one who's going to decide my fate. No. If we're going to go to trial, I want 12 people of my own peers.
Your peers, yeah.
Yeah.
And would that have held if he'd called that?
I did try that at one of my other. I had 2 trials in 2019, and the first one he denied because we were already in process. He's like, we're already here. It's too late for you to do this. We're just going to keep going. And I was, still wet behind the ears with it and wouldn't have known how to respond.
Yeah, it's like with anything. You have to have quite a few failures before you become a master.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, right? You've got to intentionally go up and poke the bear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to keep doing it over and over and over again, and just keep getting back in there.
But each time you go, you're given a £1,200 fine.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. That's what's interesting is when I went and did a traffic hearing in 2019 with Delaware, the state of Delaware. They charged me court fines. And I went to the clerk of the court to get my paper and whatnot. And I said, well, what would have happened if I would have won? She said, you still would have had to pay the court fines. I'm like,
really?
Yeah. And I'm like, you guys made me come. You guys are the ones. I didn't come here on my own choice. I didn't require you. That's like if I would have, it would make sense to me. Right? So if Mark damaged my property and I then had to, well, see, that's the whole thing, right? If it's a public office and we are quote unquote paying taxes for this public service, what the Smurf are you charging me court fees for? This should be already paid for by taxes.
And you're there under duress as well.
Well, that's the second thing. Okay, right. But let's go back to the point to where I have made a claim against you for injury, and I'm seeking remedy. So I am requiring the time of the court. Right? Now, that's actually not my instigation. Rather, since you are the one who injured or damaged my property, I'm going to include the court fees in my case against you. You're paying for this. I'm not here because I want to be here. I'm here because you hit my car or damaged my body, right? So anyway, that's the whole thing with contract law, right? If I want you to come and help me dig up my stump and you do it on your own free will, well, that's great. I'll give you a beer, I'll give you 2 beers or whatever, I'll buy you pizza and, we'll dig out the stump together. But if you say, look, I really don't have the time, and I go, look, Mark, I need your help, I'll give you $200. Right? I'm paying for something that I'm asking you to sacrifice your time. So I understand that aspect of remuneration for services. That makes complete sense. But when the court system requires me to pay for something they're making me do, we just pay that with no, yeah, I guess we just got to pay. So Ron Hagberg is out there in the audience. Hey, Ron, if you're still there, I just see you saying hello to me. So, hey, ho, ho, ho. Good to see you, man. Just chatting a little bit about the court system and the highwaymen on the highways. If you want to join the discussion, go into the description of the YouTube channel and come in and say hi. But anyway, yeah. So I basically answered your question, but interrupted a thought that you had. I don't know if you remember what you were going to say, Mark.
I found my Latin phrase.
Oh, okay.
Nemo judex in causa sua.
Woo.
Which literally means no one should be judged in his own cause. It is the principle of natural justice that no person can judge in a case in which they have an interest.
Huh.
If the judge is getting paid by the fine that he's ordered you to pay, then it's in his interest to find you guilty. Right.
Even if he even if he knocks down the fine a couple $100, they're like, oh, I'll just charge you $50. There's still
Nemo judex in causa sua.
Okay.
No one should be judged in his own cause. Now, if you can this is in my ideal world, that I can control the conversation as soon as I go in there, to show that the Crown prosecution and the judge are both paid by the Crown, and that payment comes from the fine that you're going to impose on me, and you have to recuse yourself.
Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to establish in where I've had some thoughts in the past couple of days since I started listening to these videos again, is that how do you create a courtroom where the state does not have an interest? How do you get it?
So,
well, but see, that's the whole thing, right? So if I have a claim against you, then the court has no interest because it's not a commercial issue. It doesn't have to do with traffic, right?
Yeah, that's right. But but when a police officer finds you driving without tax or insurance, he uses the Crown prosecution. He hands the case over to the Crown to prosecute you.
Right, right, and that's exactly and that's exactly where we step and say, objection, Your Honor. Where is Mr. Crown? Where's my accuser?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that because every sort of case brought against me in court has always been my name, Mark Doxey, versus Regina, the Queen. So she's the victim. And once you get the fine, it's broken down into court costs, the actual cost of the sin of the fine, and also there's a bit for Elizabeth as well, that she gets something like 25 quid as well because she's the victim.
Who's Regina?
It's the Queen. It's the Latin word for Queen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I get it. Okay, Rex. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Rex and Regina. Yeah.
I don't like that word Regina. It just sounds too much like the other one. Honestly.
Well, when you register your car,
sure,
you're handing it over to her. She actually owns it, but she gives permission.
Mm-hmm.
I just put a YouTube video in on that Latin phrase. It's actually a maxim.
Can you put it in the? Can you put it in the live stream chat on the YouTube as well? I don't see it. You put it in. Oh, here it is. I'll do it. I got it. Okay.
If you could rehearse your questions before as soon as you go into court.
Yeah.
And get the judge to admit that he's getting paid from the fine he's going to give you. Then he has to recuse himself.
Yeah.
It sounds lovely.
Yeah. It's a matter of just not backing down, of repeating yourself. You know, if he ignores your statement or your claim or the point that you're making, you know, again, the whole thing that we get railroaded on is that like, I think on my last, it was 2 years ago, I had snuck in a recording device that I bought. It looks like a thumb. Actually, it is a thumb drive, but it's also an audio recorder. But I had it in my pocket, and my jacket was making so much noise with my movements that it was inaudible. But in one of my last courtroom appearances, shoot, what was I going to say? It wasn't about the court being paid by the state. Yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say now. Basically, it was just an example, again, of them railroading and not really caring about your argument. Practicing law from the bench, right? There's supposed to be an impartial judge, an impartial arbiter, and he entered the plea of guilty for me because I wouldn't enter a plea. And he said, well, I'm just going to enter a plea of guilty. Objection, Your Honor. You know, when did I hire you as my counsel? Right? Are you acting, you know, and he just did whatever he wanted. Like, what can you do? What can you do? I mean, I don't know what I can do.
Well, over here, they give you the false dichotomy of guilty or not guilty. And
Well, that's
if you hesitate,
yeah.
they'll put the plea in for you as not guilty.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. Is that that's where I was talking on. If you go back to, let me just look it up real quick. It's from one of our my previous videos on Red Hen Radio. I was talking to Physics Warrior, and oh shoot, I'm doing two things at once, and I distracted myself from what I was going to say. I can't remember what I was going to say. Previous show on Courtroom. I don't even know what to call this, whatever. Okay. What was I saying? I was saying that he railroaded me. I objected. He didn't pay attention to my objection. He put a plea of guilty. Yeah, he put a plea of guilty. I don't remember what I was going to say. Anyway, I put the link in there. You can listen to it. It was a good discussion. Physics is a pretty good guy. Yeah. I mean, it's a learning curve, you know. Absolutely, you got to keep doing it over and over and over again. And thankfully, guys like Alphonse and others have the time.
So what's Alphonse's tactic now?
His tactic now is to file paperwork that hopefully alerts the court that you're not a normal sheeple. You're someone with whom they do not want to contend. Now, if they have someone in their courtroom and who thinks that their courtroom applies to them, then they can do whatever they want. But once you get someone like Alphonse or you or me who know that I don't belong to your game, right? I don't belong to McDonald's. I don't belong to Disneyland. I don't belong to La La Land. That's not my world. My world is right here. Where's my accuser? Where's the injured party? What's the crime? No crime? Get this dismissed. What am I doing here? And that was really what Alphonse's approach for me was early on, was just to do that verbally. You know, what am I doing here, Judge? Where's my accuser? No, not here. The judge, that prosecutor? What first-hand experience knowledge does he have? Was he there? No, this is all hearsay. He can't speak. Is he under oath? No. Is he going to testify? Right? Yeah. So it was all verbal. So now his approach is you have what's called an affidavit, a declaration of truth. Your affidavit of status declares who you are as a man and is your identification. It's actually something else that he recommends you do as a form of identification, so that when you are pulled over by a highway robber, you don't hand over your driver's license. You hand over your affidavit of status that you have had notarized by a government official, right? So there's notary publics up and down my town street here. Just like there's a dentist's offices and law offices, there's a notary public right down here, right? He's sanctioned by the state to give a stamp, boom, whatever, authentication. So I go in there with my I go in there with my passport, and I go in there with my driver's license, and I have this affidavit of status, and there's certain points on there where you make declarations about yourself that you are willing to testify under oath. And you make declarations that separate you from the court system. Like, I don't belong here under your Mickey Mouse La La Land. I don't belong in that world. That's not where my identity is. My identity is over here. So that's your affidavit of status. And then you have an affidavit of fact. So if I have a declaration or a claim against you, then I'm going to send you this record that I am willing. I went to a notary public and I have it, stamped that I am willing to put my credibility on the line under oath that this crime and this crime was committed against me by you. Now, you have X amount of days to respond and rebut, right? So
it's like a counterclaim.
Yeah, and if you don't counterclaim, then my claim against you stands as truth. If you ignore what I claim, then that's not a rebuttal. So,
and does it work?
That's the proof is in the pudding process that we're in right now. Now, there if you notice, there's so many things that go in the chat at the Telegram group where Alphonse is. He has posted some successes, but they're not always the same. They're different instances of these opportunities. So they're not all claims against individuals. They're not all claims against the court. They're not, they're all different kinds of applications of these things. But that's, a lot of the people that are in the group are kind of like taking what Alphonse is saying, and they're at least getting the paperwork filled out for the next time.
Yeah, they're preempting it before it happens.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on Mark Stevens' approach, where you ask them to give the evidence that the law actually applies to you because of your physical position?
Well, that's something that even Alphonse will do in argumentation. He'll affirm that same that same approach. It's kind of like what he was telling me to do. Like, where is my accuser? Well, then what am I doing here? If there's no evidence that these laws apply to me, there's no accuse. Now, I had the same instance in my experience in Delaware, where the judge said to me, if you are breathing the air in Delaware, these laws apply to you. You're guilty. You're dismissed, right? And all I could do was say, I object. Now, according to Alphonse, that is still open for prosecution. Like, I could come back and file charges against that judge for that injustice.
Do you think there was that question that you asked him, and he affirmed, yeah, that is the case? Was there another question that you should have asked first?
What's that?
I don't know. I'm just saying, have you analysed that you could have caught him out with a prior question to that actual question?
Well, I suppose that would be something to scrutinize, but the transcripts, they charge $15 a page.
Goodness me. So don't say too much.
Because I called up and said, I'd like the transcripts for my trial. They're like, oh yeah, that'd be $15 a page. It's 45 pages. I'm like, what the? Isn't this a public service? Right? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean...
The way they used to do it in Mark Stevens' role play was to ask, am I presumed innocent of all elements of the charge?
Yeah. Yep.
And then one of the elements of the charge is that my physical location made my physical location counted in that charge. So where's the evidence for that particular part of the
right
the accusation?
Yeah, I actually did have that whole script with me, and that's where I said, Mr. Fidley, are you ready to enter a plea? Your Honor, I just have a few questions just to make sure that I'm fully aware of what's happening. Would you mind if I go through those questions? Am I Do I have the right to a fair and speedy trial? Do I have the right to understand all the charges again? Do I have all blah, blah, blah. So that was the script. I did use Mark Stevens' script in that. And again, when I got to the point of where is the evidence, his answer was, the evidence is you're breathing our air.
Okay. Is that a non sequitur?
That would be an interesting. So for me, I suppose the one thing that I would do along with the affidavit of status and the affidavit of fact, if it gets to the point, if you don't settle out of court, then I don't think I would ever go into court without a jury. I would demand a jury. I would never go in there one-on-one with the judge.
If it was a tax accusation, failure to pay your tax, and you demanded a jury, and every one of those jury members are taxpayers, you haven't got an unbiased jury, have you? It
depends, right? And I suppose that's where the jury selection comes into play, where I think that if I'm not hiring a lawyer, then I'm going to be able to choose jury members that I think are going to be favorable to me. But one of the first videos that I remember watching with the tax issue was about a case, I think it was in Chicago or Illinois or somewhere up there, where this female airline pilot was brought in for tax evasion, and it was a trial by jury, and the video presentation actually had jury members testify. Well, not testify, but it wasn't that technical. They had jury members on the video talk about their experience, and for them, when they saw that there was no law, because that's what this woman did. She said, "Show me the law. I'll pay anything that I'm obligated to pay. Where is the law that says that I'm obligated to pay taxes?" And they couldn't produce it. So the testimony in the video by jury members was that we were not prepared for that. We thought there was a law, and when they couldn't produce a law, how could we find her guilty? We found her not guilty. So this woman was sued by the IRS, and the jury found in her favor.
That's brilliant.
So to me, it doesn't matter whether or not you're going to have an impartial jury. If you get to the point to where you say, where is your evidence, and there's no evidence, how in the world could anybody vote against you, cast a vote against you, if there's no evidence, right? I don't know.
Well, yeah. Other than the human issue comes in, the human emotion. I paid my taxes for the 40 years. Why should you get away with it? But then that's where your jury selection would come in, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose. But at the same time, I would think that you, as a jury member, would say, okay, even though I paid my taxes for the past 45 years, I'm going to stop paying taxes right now. Because I've just seen how I don't have to. Right?
A way out, yeah.
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 So. All right, well...
That's an hour and 6 minutes gone by.
Yep,
so,
yep, I was just looking at that clock. Yeah, you too, Mark. Well, we'll see what happens with this. We'll see if we can get any activity and follow-up and whatnot. But always good to talk to you, Mark. And we'll catch up later.
Right.
All right.
I'm going to say goodnight.
Okay.
Cheerio.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. All right, everybody out there in Redhead Radio land, thank you so much for hanging around and lurking. Journey's Wake is out there. Ron Hagberg was out there. Isaiah 40. Journey's Wake, I'm interested to find out, since you know about Isam Halsky, where you're at and what you're thinking about. So keep in touch and let me know where you learned about the stream if you are already a member of Red Hen Radio and just saw that it was live right now. How do I kill this stream? It's been a while since I've done a live stream. I will talk to you guys later. Until next time.